Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here for the Cancer Education Series. I'm Dick Deming. I'm Medical Director of MercyOne Cancer Center and founder of Above and Beyond Cancer. The Cancer Education Series is supported financially from a grant from the Iowa Cancer Consortium. And you're in for a treat tonight, and I'm in for a treat. We have a father-son duo here tonight. So we have Steven Danna and his father, Rob. Rob grew up in New Jersey. He's lived in Iowa since 2008. And Rob is Senior Vice President at ITA Group. And Steven is now a freshman at the University of Iowa. Go Hawks! And as Steven has a journey through cancer that we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about, these unexpected things that just fall out of the sky like a mountain to climb without expectation. Yeah. We're going to talk a bit about what we call AYA. So AYA in the cancer world stands for adolescent and young adults. And one of the reasons we're going to focus on Steven's story is the cancer journey is different for everyone, but there are some particular nuances and special concerns for young individuals and their family when you go through a cancer journey. So welcome, Steven.
Thank you.
Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so we are live tonight on the eve of March Madness. So we've got the Hawkeyes playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what's it like to be a Hawkeye right now?
It's awesome. It's the best. Two of the best players in the country with Caitlin and Keegan. And it's just awesome going to the games every single week. And I'm super excited to watch tomorrow.
So did you get to go to all of the home games? Or
I think I only missed two of the men's games. And I got to go to a couple women's games at the end of the season. So I'm super glad I got to watch them.
Okay. Well, let's start with the beginning of your story. So you're a sophomore at Waukee High School. Mm-hmm. And what was the first symptom you had that you thought something was going on?
So sophomore year, spring break, I was playing tennis. I've been a tennis player my whole life, and I started having a bump on my knee with a little bit of pain, but we didn't think anything of it because I'm playing tennis through the season. We were like, oh, it's just torn muscle, like tendonitis, something like that. Kept getting worse. We kept playing on it. I'm a teenager. I don't want to tell my parents or tell my coach because they'll say you can't play anymore. So I keep going, and then I start losing sleep over it. I start having to use crutches to walk, and that's when we finally go to a physical therapist who recommends us to a sports scientist, and that's when it all really fell down on me.
Okay. So probably confirmation was an X-ray.
Yeah, well, so I was originally an ultrasound. When I couldn't stand the ultrasound, I went to go get an X-ray and an MRI. That's the next day.
Gotcha. So the first test was an ultrasound, but it was so tender that even putting the ultrasound probe on.
And that was the third ultrasound I had. The first two I was fine with, but then the third one I couldn't even stand it. So that's when they knew that there was something wrong with it.
So what was the date of that first X-ray?
It was early June. I know the day I found out.
June of
2019.
2019.
And then I found out that I was diagnosed with an osteosarcoma on June 14th.
Okay. So what was going through your mind when you were told you had an osteosarcoma?
It was pretty crazy. My parents told me we were sitting on the back deck. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I don't even there was so much going through my head. I ended up leaving that night and going out with some buddies and just hanging out, trying to take my mind off of it.
So mom and dad told you?
Yeah, we had the doctor before earlier in the day kind of led up to it, but didn't necessarily say it. And then they told me later that night.
Gotcha. So Rob, you got the call from Dr. Miller or from
not from the X-ray, the biopsy certainly was another moment of all of that rehearsed. The X-ray call came in from the X-ray technician basically, and just let us know right there in that night. So yeah, I happened to be at work. And I was getting a play-by-play basically at work, and you can imagine your head is just split between work and home. And I'm watching my phone. I'm listening, play-by-play, and then as soon as that came down, I rushed right home. And I was probably home around 2:00 that afternoon, and we were on the deck at 2:30 with Steven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my first words were, "Our lives are about to change," and I said ours because we were all in it together. Yeah.
So at the point that you knew the diagnosis, you probably hadn't had much consultation about what the path was going to be.
Not at all. Zero path.
So as you're trying to tell your son that he has cancer, did you use the word cancer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, "You have cancer."
Yeah.
And then they explained
Okay.
it more than that. But yeah, they didn't sugarcoat it at all. They just told me,
Okay.
which I'm glad about. I didn't want it to be sugarcoated or hidden from me at all. I just wanted to face it straight on.
So what was going through your mind as you were formulating how you were going to tell Steven?
I think Steven said there was no punches pulled. The reality we were all going to face together. I wanted to make sure that Steven knew that we were there, period, and that come what may, we were there. And that's kind of the hard part because we didn't know the path, and it's hard to explain to your 17-year-old, what the path is going to be because we want to know it as bad as he does, but he's, he needs to know. So it was kind of just we set a foundation right then and there that, we're all going to have a role to play in this, come what may. We're all going to have each other's back. I could tell actually Steven was more concerned about his mom and dad than we were of him.
Were you in tears?
Of course. All three of us at some point, for sure, were in tears. But it wasn't because of fear. It was because I think Steven was worried about us. We were worried about Steven. Steven and I are worried about mom, just because of the unknown. And I will say all those tears dried up the more information we got. Information, as I'm sure you're going to get to, is the key in all of this to your comfort in that journey.
Well, let's go to the first slide because we got some pictures here and everyone can see what that first x-ray looks like. When did you get to see the x-ray for the first time?
Well, we saw it the day I got it, right when I got
next
it.
one, George, I think. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So there's when I got my port placed on the day of my biopsy. That was kind of, I knew if I woke up with a port that it was cancerous. And then on the right is the knee replacement I ended up getting when they took out my knee and part of my tibia. So, but yeah, I woke up with the port, and I think that's really when I knew that it was real, and that was really gonna happen.
So
biopsy and port, same.
You had the X-ray, and the X-ray findings are pretty specific, but obviously a piece of the tissue where they look at it in a microscope is really the essence of making the diagnosis. So that happened. And you knew that if the biopsy confirmed it was positive, they're going to put the port in during the same anesthesia. Yeah. And you woke up and go, okay.
Yeah, I knew it was real.
It
was probably the weirdest feeling I've ever felt.
Let's go back to the beginning because we got some great pictures that sort of set up prior to. So here we are. This is before the diagnosis.
Well,
right?
next one, I would say. Next slide, George, if you don't mind. You can see like Steven and I were in Park City, Utah, skiing on the tumor, the inflamed tumor at that time, having no idea, having the best time of our lives, not knowing what was lurking. This is what, March?
Yeah.
And
so spring
April,
break.
Yeah.
Sophomore year in
right before everything. Yep. So it was the same thing I was playing tennis on. We just didn't even know it yet.
Riding bikes together. We're huge mountain bikers, huge snowboarders. Just normal life. And then it all just like, what? And then you start thinking about how everything's going to change from there. But then you can see the friends stepping up. It was.
Let's go to the next slide, George. So, tell me again what was going through your mind when you came out of anesthesia.
I mean, well, like I said, going into it, I knew if I woke up with that port that our suspicions were confirmed and that it really was cancer. And when I woke up, I saw the port. I knew that it was real. I knew that we had been told that then treatment would start in the next few days, and it did. It was moving so fast. So then I only really had a few more days of like a normal-ish life before I was back in the hospital again. So
you got chemotherapy first, correct? You had the biopsy.
So I had the biopsy, then I had 10 treatments of chemo over 3 months before my knee surgery. And then I had a couple more months after.
So the chemotherapy, were you going to the university for the chemo?
I was at Blank Children's Hospital.
Okay, so you're getting the chemo
Yeah.
here. And how frequent was the chemotherapy?
So I would have it in 3-week cycles. I'd have 2 weeks of a certain kind and then 1 week of a really strong kind. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. And then I'd have a week off. So it's like 3-week cycles. And I had that multiple times, so then until surgery.
And did you need to miss school for some of the chemo
So
cycles?
luckily, the first part was during the summer, so that was nice. And then thankfully, my counselor in Waukee was super understanding, and I was able to do online school. They set me up with an online school. I was able to take the same classes, so I didn't fall behind, which was really nice. And I got to go to the first day of school. I went to one class, which is really cool, just to be back with my friends and my teachers, even though I wasn't there the whole day.
And that would have been the first day of your junior year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that was I went to one class that year. That was the only class I went to, but it was really cool to be back with everyone. And so it's like somewhat of a normal life.
So what was the worst part of chemo?
Just the toll that it took on my body. I was bedridden for hours and hours. And the first time I was throwing up all day, all night. And then just the physical toll it took. I was tired. I just wanted to sleep all day. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't have any motivation to do anything.
Lost all your hair?
Lost all my hair.
So
what were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you looked in the slides, I had blonde hair at one point at the start. So before when I knew
wait. Naturally blonde?
No,
it's on the cover slide, George.
So it was a fashion statement.
Yes.
Okay. So
no, on the first slide, you can see that I made the executive decision to dye my hair blonde when I knew I was going to lose it.
Okay.
So that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. And it was something cool that I knew was coming out, but I knew I could experiment with it a little bit.
And so then when it started coming out, did you shave it? Did you?
Yeah, I cut it right away.
And did you do it yourself or did you have a professional?
We had someone else do it because it was really, it really hurt to get it shaved. I was so sensitive and my hair was so sensitive that it was like, I was almost brought to tears by how much it hurt when she brought the clippers to my head. But I think I pulled it off well.
Okay. And what was your first thought when you looked in the mirror?
It was very different because it was super patchy still. So it wasn't like perfectly bald like throughout the whole thing, but it was like, whoa, because I'd always had long hair my whole life and not having any was something else. And then later down the road, I didn't have like my eyebrows, didn't have any eyebrows, didn't have any eyelashes. So just progressively got less and less.
And Dad, what was the worst part of chemo for you? And
it's interesting because the worst part for me was, I think the worst part for Steven, and I'll say it a little differently, because as an under 18 individual, I don't know who, but the hospital requires them to stay in hospital for X period of time after ingestion of the methotrexate in order to get it out of your system. And you know better than I the numbers. We had to wait. We would literally have to sit there after the methotrexate 13 hours. We're in there for 36, 50 hours of time waiting for the numbers. Now, I believe if he's 18, he can walk out immediately after the methotrexate and go. And he's months away from his 18th birthday, and we're stuck. And I will say, to me, I feel like that brought on the depression. That brought on the lack of energy, no exercise. He's laying in a bed for 36 hours at a time when I think he should be running laps.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that was just working against us, and it worked. His mindset was not in a good place because we would sit there for hours and we would stay up all night waiting for the numbers, begging them to take another lab, like, get us out of here. We just want to go home. And it became this funny game, a contest. It felt like there was always a lawyer in the room somewhere that we couldn't see or touch, but there was somebody else guiding this besides common sense. And we would literally try to say that, my son's really depressed here. We're all depressed. Poor Sherry's laying on this kind of uncomfortable bed couch thing, for 3 nights. Could we go home? So I would say that was hard.
So it was 10 cycles of chemo. And I'm kind of inferring that at this point we just need to get this through and the logistics of it. What about the fear of, is it going to work? Is my life in danger? how long did that shock last before you just got into the routine of the treatment?
Yeah, that never went away. Even
Okay.
the whole time I had it on my mind, like, is this going to work? Is this not going to
Uh-huh.
work? I mean, I think everyone who is diagnosed Googles the numbers, the survival rate, if it works, if it doesn't. And of course I did that when I found out, and that always stuck with me. It still sticks with me now, and being in remission, and that always kind of hung over me. But I was always, and with my parents, we always had the mindset that it was going to work. And that we really knew it was going to work when I got the tumor removed, and it was 99% removed. So we definitely knew that it was working.
Mm-hmm. But that beginning before you got the first chemo, so your docs had talked to you what the plan was going to be, but you kind of wanted to do your own research and see what the World Wide Web said about your prognosis. So when you pressed enter that night or day,
it was scary because it was like, I'm pretty sure it's like it's a 60-40%. So it's like, I didn't want to be on the wrong side of that. And I knew that with I really had no control over it, but all I had to do was just believe in it and just believe that the doctors and the surgeons knew what they were talking about and that we were able to get through it.
And during the chemo phase, how was your support, your friends, first of all, your friends?
Yeah, that was the biggest part of it. I think my friends and family, they'd come almost every single day. I'd have someone visiting me, and we'd have pizza parties on the weekends. We'd watch the sports games, and especially when I went home on my breaks or over the weekends, I would always go and hang out with friends, and they'd always take me to go out to eat. And I had the best support group I feel that I could have had. I had people that I've never even met come into my life, and now that we're best friends, and I really think I couldn't have done it without that group.
So what would be one of the most surprising things that happened during chemo in terms of your interaction with friends?
Yeah, so I think probably one of the biggest things is I had a tennis tournament in my name set up by two people I've never even met in the tennis community. And they set up a tournament to raise money for multiple organizations. And it was in my name, and it was super cool because I was able to go actually and watch the tournament, and kids were playing with my Team Steven shirt on. And that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, was seeing people out playing tennis, which I couldn't be doing at the time, but I could watch them play sporting me, and it was really cool.
And Dad, what about family and friends and surprising things that happened from your perspective as a parent?
Yeah, a lot of them. And like Steven said, people that you never expected, people, complete strangers entered our lives, that we would have never expected to have met and to have contributed to the journey, was one of the most surprising. Right from the get-go, family was involved. I flew my father out, who was willing and able to come out and come through the diagnosis conversations with us. He came out for the biopsy, came out to Iowa City. He's a long-term pharma guy, grew up in clinical research, so he had a background. He's advocated for his mom and dad as they went through their end of life. So he taught me how to advocate. And helped us advocate through this process. Maybe too much. You can hear my little bit of things. A little rough edges still in that.
It's your son.
It's your son, and you have to advocate.
And if you have to ruffle a few feathers,
And that's what he showed me right from day one, which is very helpful. But he was always there. My parents were always there. Our parents were always there throughout this entire journey. And friends and family. Steven had an opportunity where. A professional tennis player in Australia, Nick Kyrgios, hears about Steven's story through a couple of connections. Next thing you know, Kyrgios's tennis racket shows up on our front door after he smashed it through a temper tantrum on the court, signed it, and mailed it to Steven.
Wait, you got a smashed tennis racket? Okay, probably more famous that way.
Yeah.
Okay,
that kind of stuff happened, and it just blows us away. Can't thank you enough for the introduction to Fran McCaffrey. It's Fran, Luca, and Patrick showed up in our hospital room the day after surgery. Blow us away, and I know you had something to do with that. Thank you very much. But you and I didn't even know each other at the time,
right?
Which made this even more amazing.
Yeah, it's people want to help.
Yeah,
people want to help, and some people, my experience with taking care of many patients is that sometimes friends or families sort of become distant because they don't know what to say and they're afraid they're going to say something wrong. Did you experience that at all, where any of your friends were nervous
definitely.
around you and didn't know what to say? And
definitely, when I told a lot
avoided.
of people, it was definitely like they didn't know what to say, or like they just kind of like shied away from it. And like a lot of people I know were like too afraid to come to the hospital and visit because they didn't know like what was going to happen or how sick I really was. But then a lot of people were upfront with me about it, and I was glad about that because I needed people to talk to about it. I needed people to go through the journey with me because I couldn't do it alone. And I was really thankful for those people who understood what I was going through, and especially didn't treat me differently because I had cancer. I didn't want to be treated differently. I still wanted to be able to hang out with people and go and do everything that a junior in high school would do.
So you obviously have a very supportive family. I've met mom and dad, Rob and Sherry, and during the chemo part, were you ever offered, or did you have your own professional counselor?
Kind of. I had a mentor who also had cancer. He's a little bit older than me. And before everything happened, I met with him and we talked about just what it was and what to expect and everything that would happen to me, because he didn't have the same type of cancer that I did, but he was able to kind of introduce me to ideas and mindsets to have. And knowing that I had him to go through it with, he came to my first chemo session and kind of gave us the ins and outs of the hospital and like tips for everything. And it was really nice to have him on my side.
Okay. And what about like school counselor or pastor or any other professional counselors?
No, we tried to like a counselor through the hospital. It didn't really work. It was a good attempt, but it just didn't really work. I didn't really mesh with them well. I just really thought that my counselor were my parents and my friends, and I think that really worked best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having a good relationship with your folks is really, really strong and important at this time. Well, let's go next to the next phase of your treatment, which was the surgery. So I think we've got the photograph of the x-ray after surgery. So that's after surgery, right?
On the right. Yeah.
And maybe while that's up, tell us a little bit about the surgery, the day of surgery. What were you thinking when you went under anesthesia? How long was the surgery? Yeah. What's the first memory you have when you came out of surgery?
Yeah, so I think the really cool place to start is the day before. I had a friend up in college up there. We actually went skateboarding, just skateboarded around and talked. And I was like, this is the last time I'll be able to do this. And I thought that was really cool. I still have a picture of that, just me riding around on a skateboard. That was super cool. And then that morning, my family and I walked around Kinnick, something that I wasn't able to do for a while. So that was cool. You saw the selfie of us in the first slide. That was at Kinnick that morning. And then just up until surgery was a blur. I had too many doctors to count. I had to get an epidural on my back. That was something I'd never done before. And then the first thing I remember waking up, I don't remember it, but I have a video, and it's a video of me on a lot of pain medicine, taking a video of all the cords that were connected to me in the bed at 4 a.m. And I remember being told, I think it was almost a 6-hour surgery. And that whole week, honestly, was a blur to me. I was on so many medications and was in too much pain to even remember it. But I do remember the McCaffreys coming. I do remember a little bit of getting to experience the wave, which was a super surreal moment. But overall, that whole week was just a blur.
It was pretty certain that you were going to be able to have surgery and keep your leg, correct?
Yeah. That was definitely, there was always an option. Their other option was to amputate my leg. And that was definitely an option that we discussed. But all in all, it was more important to keep the leg when we could just go with a replacement.
Yeah. So it wasn't like you woke up and the first thing is like, oh, I do still have a leg.
No, but I do remember waking up and just seeing the huge bag of blood off to the side that was with the tubes in my leg. And that was something that really freaked me out because I couldn't see under all the bandages. I didn't know what was under there, what wasn't. So
how long were you an inpatient after the surgery?
So we were there, I think 10 days. So it was a pretty lengthy time, but the University of Iowa made it super welcoming and it was really good. I was able to eat a lot of good food and everything. It was super helpful and accommodating to all of us.
So, and at that point you were 19 17.
I was still
No,
17.
you're
in that.
17.
That was in September.
17. So you were in the children's hospital.
I was instead. It was awesome. It was really cool. Like I said, I got to experience the wave in the game that weekend, and I have videos of that on my phone. That was something that I'll never forget.
So what was the date of your surgery?
The 24th of September.
Okay, so you're in the middle of football season.
Yep.
Okay.
So it was football season was in full swing. It was I think we had the third game of the year. So.
Okay. Then I'm sure next step was rehab.
Yeah.
And when do you get to start rehab, and how much did you have to baby it, and at what point did you get to start to do some rehab?
Yeah, so it was definitely so they actually ended up breaking my leg in surgery. So I had to stay for almost 2 months, no weight bearing on that, which usually when they do the surgery, you don't have to do that. You can bear weight right away. So that pushed me back 2 months of not doing really anything. And then I was able to go back to my physical therapist. We were able to start bending my knee slowly. I was still in a straight leg brace, still wrapped up. I was in a straight leg brace, but I was able to bend it a degree or two every week.
Let's go to some of the pictures. Most of your rehab back here in Des Moines?
Yeah, almost all of it was at my local physical therapy clinic. And yeah, it was.
So here we are. This is there's the wave in the middle, right?
Yep, there's the McCaffreys on the left.
McCaffrey's visiting.
That's during the wave, and then we have some enemies on the right, but it was still pretty cool. Able to have Cy visit me, and that was pretty cool.
They let Cy into this.
That was in Des Moines.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Yeah, I don't think they let him into.
No,
no.
That was in Des Moines. That was still pretty cool, though.
Okay, and let's go to the next slide. And
that was my kind of my.
That was one of the lower points on the journey.
My favorite pictures. That was actually a couple days after surgery at the university, and that was kind of
you get to go outside and
my mental state in a picture.
Okay, next slide.
Oh no, the PT's next one. Yep.
Okay, we'll go there. We'll come back to that one. Here we go. Here's
the physical therapy. Kind of that third picture was me being able to move my knee. That was probably a couple months into it. It was still, like I said, a degree or two every single day. Like it was the slowest process I've ever had. Especially seeing all my friends out playing basketball, playing tennis, running around, and I was in a wheelchair and a walker still. But I mean, I was a lot of hard work, and I couldn't have done it without my parents. My dad really pushed me a little bit farther than maybe we would have liked sometimes, but in the end, it really helped me be where I'm at today.
Yeah. So talk about that, Rob, a bit. I mean, there are two approaches. I mean, there's many approaches, but I mean, one is, let's give you a hug and some empathy. And the other is, how about a can of suck it up and a kick in the butt? Yeah. And so, rehab's a little bit of both. And so how did you approach that, being a kind of Steven's coach, maybe a bit in the rehab and getting him back to function?
Yeah. I mean, I probably erred on the side of fitness coach more than anything else. A little open a can of suck it up is how I grew up. So I'm sure that's just natural for you to hear from me anyway. But I think, one, I led by example. I wasn't sitting on the couch and asking him to do something I wasn't about to do. I think that I've always believed that your muscular skeleton holds up your bones, for that matter. And I believe you should have your muscles hold up your body. And I told him that from a young age. And I know that, the stronger you are, the better your bones will be, or your replacement bones in this case will be. So I strongly encourage them to get into, squatting and deadlifts, and not to mention upper body work. We bought a gym for the home right away, a big, Inspire rack that we put up. So we got into it, and we talked about amputation, but I was literally Googling like different blades to put on, like what advantage he was going to get, and how we were going to strap it onto a snowboard. And I was kind of having fun with it at your expense. But we had to, because I needed a path back to who we were before too. And I knew that fitness, and I knew that,
So before you got to stand on your leg and move your leg, were you allowed to do upper body?
Yeah, I could do, and I would, even if I was sitting down, I would still be moving my upper body, still be able to lift with my upper body. It was just a slow process. Whether I was going to be on crutches in the basement or using my walker, I was still able to work out as much as I could my upper body.
Do you remember the day you took the first step without crutches?
I do. It was pretty cool. I remember it was in physical therapy. I started with one crutch, and then I just was like, I don't need this anymore. And I was able to take a couple steps down my crutch. And that was a super surreal moment because it was still 8 or 9 months after surgery. So it was a long time coming, but I could tell that all my work was really paying off. And that was just the first step in a long road.
So before that first step, how many times did you fall down?
A lot. It was a lot of being held up.
And how about the first time you fell down, like when you weren't in physical therapy, you were like in school or at home?
Yeah. I'd be at home and I'd stumble over my walker. Like,
it's like, oh my God, he broke it.
You broke your wrist, remember?
That was way after that.
Oh, well.
But yeah, I did break my wrist. I tripped and fell. I still wasn't as fast as I could. That wasn't while I had my brace or anything, but I did trip and fall all over my leg. That wasn't really keeping up with me, and I broke my wrist. But still, when I had everything, I took my fair share of falls, or I learned to have to slide down the stairs and not use it as a slide, not walk down the steps. So I really played it safe after the first few.
How long did it take before you felt like you were in your new normal?
Probably 2 years. I would think 2 years. Back when I really started playing tennis again, being able to compete, that's when I felt like I'm back to where I am and where I think I could be. I always think I can get better. I'm never satisfied with where I'm at, but I really think when I was able to keep up with some of my buddies playing tennis, I really thought that that's when I was back.
So talk a bit about the first time back on a tennis court after the surgery.
Yeah, so the first time I was back, it was at a tennis tournament that I was just watching with some friends, and I just wanted to go out and hit. And that was literally just me standing there on my own with a racket. But that was still something super cool for me, just being able to hold a racket again and hit, even if I wasn't moving. And then that graduated into going back to practices, and then that just came back and started playing the tennis season.
Yeah. So I think we have a picture of, so this would have been then your senior year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And here in Iowa, tennis is a spring sport.
It is, yeah.
So it's spring, just probably a couple months before you're graduating, or maybe a month before.
So there it is. Yeah. So we ended up winning the state championship my senior year. I was playing singles and doubles, much to my parents my mom did not like it that much. He loved it. But she didn't like it too much, but I couldn't give it up my senior year. I knew that I missed the first day of practice because she didn't really want me to play. And I told my coach, I'm not sitting out anymore. So then I started working my way back in, and then I just kept playing more and more.
So with your surgeon, was it don't ask, don't tell, or did you get permission?
It was kind of like your limits. I don't think he liked it too much, as any surgeon would who replaces a knee, but I think he knew that with my work ethic and he knew who I wasn't going to stop, and I wasn't going to let it stop me, because I think that he understood that I'm still an 18-year-old kid living my high school life, and I don't think he really wanted to ruin that, take that away from me.
So you got to play on the championship team.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. Me and my best friend clinched it for us. So I don't think there could have been a better way to really end it. Yeah. So it was a super surreal moment for everyone. I mean, we played with our jerseys that were customized to have my initials with the cancer symbol right there. And I think winning in those jerseys and me being on that court was something that I'll never forget.
So mom and dad, what was as you're watching your son play at the state tournament?
I mean, just incredible pride, and seeing the team support was just incredible. The moms and dads all on the sideline, just knowing. So he's not giving himself enough credit. So the team they dedicated the entire season to Steven, not expecting him to play. And Steven even went out there first time saying, I'm just going to be the team manager, help him throw some towels. I'll spar with him a little bit. And it was more like the sparring became him being more and more competitive. And then he was able to, lateral and forward and back. And then a couple of the kids would always tease you because they knew you couldn't get to some balls, and they'd hit them back there and make you run. But Steven came home, and that's why I had a quote up there. He came home one day and he said to his mom and dad, he said, I think I can play. And of course I'm like, yes. And Sherry's like, maybe. But the team kind of self-nominated Steven to go out there too. And it was like this rally of support for him to go play. And he ended up picking up a doubles, 1 and 2 doubles you played, and number 3, 4 singles from time to time. And they knew where to put you against which teams. And the whole team just rallied. And I think that is why this group won the state tournament.
Right. So the whole ripple effect is as everyone just fed on this positive
Purpose.
energy.
Yeah.
So now we are 2 years out, and you've had every test turn out just great, and you're in remission.
Yeah.
How often do you go back for imaging?
So now it's every 6 months to a year. I meet with my surgeon every 6 months, and then I go back to the clinic to get scans about every 6 months to a year now.
So what's it like the day you get the scans?
Oh, it's super.
How long does it take to get the results?
I mean, leading up to it's super nerve-wracking. I kind of go into my own little zone, my own little world that week leading up to it, because it's probably like the biggest day of my life. I mean, like, who knows what I'm going to hear? I'm still freaked out about going to the hospital because I never know what to expect. But they're usually really quick about it. It's usually the same day we hear about it. When I get my blood work done, we hear about it when we're there. And then, I mean, the doctor's always upfront about it. It's always been good news. So, I mean, I'm going to keep going with that.
Okay. And Dad, what's your the day of the scan, the follow-up scans?
Can't focus, dizzy, depressed, scared, every emotion.
When does that start? A week before? 2 weeks before?
For me, it's day of.
Okay.
I know for Sherry, it's probably weeks before. So I would say we're different about how we approach it. And maybe that's because I lock myself away at work for 10 hours, that week a day, and kind of can compartmentalize different things. But it weighs heavy on all, and always will.
What would you say would be some things that we in the medical profession could do better for young men, adolescent, teenagers, 17-year-old going through this? Where are opportunities for improvement?
I think just like offering more opportunities, kind of, you have to, like where I was, the hospital was designed for like 4-year-olds, and I'm a big kid. I never fit in a bed in my whole time in any of the hospitals. I'm 6'2" and I don't fit. And I know of someone, one of my friend's brothers, who's 6'9". I couldn't imagine him fitting in a hospital bed. And I mean, it's kind of just like modernizing it and kind of approaching it as a teenager would. You got to have the opportunities for the kids. You got to have now like Xboxes and PlayStations, or have things to do for the kids, not just playing with having a set of trains. Like, they're not going to play with that. They're going to want to play video games or like watch sports or something. And kind of where I was, they had like the smallest TVs, and it's like no one wants to, like, I didn't want to have friends over to watch sports on a tiny TV. It's kind of just like catering towards the needs of the growing interests of these older kids.
And how about your friends and school? Anything, opportunities for improvement there?
I think, at least through Waukee, they did an amazing job kind of helping me and keeping me on track, because that was a huge worry of mine, was I was going to fall behind a year and be able to have to graduate a year later. But they did an amazing job sending me up with an online school, and I had teachers who were helping me still, and I think they did a great job. I don't think they could have done anything better.
And Rob, what about you? What would be some observations you would have maybe about the whole medical aspect of the treatment for Steven?
We were lucky. We had a great journey along the way, and the people we met, everyone was just better than the next or the last for us. Information is the key. So anywhere and anytime you can get information. I know Sherry found a great resource right out of the gate in a forum called Momcology. It allows you to go from a global perspective all the way down to local Des Moines folks and have conversations and learn. And you can join different groups of, teens with osteosarcoma. So very specific things. I found you and Above and Beyond Cancer, and that allowed me to start exercising. As I used to do rides with Steven, I now do them with the Above and Beyond crew on Tuesday nights. It's, fulfilling that void for me. The healthcare system, I think this treatment Steven got is the same exact treatment you would have gotten in 1972, whether you're 54 or 17 years old. It's the same methotrexate, doxorubicin, and cisplatin. I was hoping for a little bit more modern procedures. I don't know. I didn't hear the word CRISPR come up at all in my 2-year journey, which I've been reading about for the past 5 years. I had higher hopes, I guess, for that technology or even some alternatives down that path. But it wasn't even considered. It was just kind of like, well, this is the way we do it for 45 years and we're not deviating from this. And he's not leaving until this number equals this. I don't care if it's that. And it was just very regimented for us, where I felt like you have to take individuals into consideration. And I don't know, it got a little frustrating, I guess, from the standard MAP protocols that we had to adhere to at his age. But again, I will say that that's the protocol that I was probably frustrated with. The folks that were guiding us through that protocol knew it, understood it, were empathetic about it, showed us where we could cut a corner if we could to, were willing to push the boundaries for clinical research if they had to. So I do appreciate all the folks along that way, including those that were there in the darkest hours, because it was important to be there.
And how about you and Sherry in terms of emotionally, psychologically during this time?
The entire journey.
Yeah, looking back on it.
Brought us together even stronger than we ever were. And I think, adversity will do that for folks. We are stronger as a family than we ever have. We always were before. And I think that helped going into all this, knowing that, okay, whatever comes at us, we got each other. So we knew that the day it, was diagnosed, and coming out of it, we knew, we've seen each other at our lowest points, and we're there for each other. So we know we can only go to higher places together from this point forward. So I think that helped brace the emotions, and allows for humor to come in, because you can tell it's a necessary coping mechanism for me. And that happens only in a place of trust.
So, Steven, what have you learned on your cancer journey?
I mean, I had to learn to grow up really quick. I knew that when I heard those words, I knew that I was no longer a 17-year-old. I had to grow up really fast. I had to deal with things that no one should ever have to experience. And I think that really shaped me into who I am today. I always say that I think it's one of the best things that's happened to me. I've grown up so fast. I've totally changed a lot of my mindsets, and it allows me to work a lot harder and push myself. And like I said, I'm never satisfied, and I'm especially never satisfied anymore, because I want to prove everyone wrong. I was told I was never going to play tennis again, and I'm playing tennis. I wasn't supposed to snowboard, and I'm snowboarding. I'm not supposed to play basketball. I'm playing basketball. So it's like, I just want to keep making everyone proud and proving everyone wrong, and kind of setting my own limits.
So you've always been a strong person. You kind of realize that you have strength, that you can take on challenges. What else have you learned in terms of maybe interactions with people, or your philosophy of life, or your, glass half empty, glass half full?
Yeah.
Any changes?
So, I mean, now I definitely look at it as like every day. I just take it one day at a time. I'm like, I got to make the best of this day, because everything can change in a blink of an eye. So I just want to make the most out of every single day and accomplish everything that I can in that given day, and then just move on to the next.
So what's it like being at the University of Iowa? I mean, the hospital is right there on campus. What do you think when you go by the hospital on your way to class?
It's pretty interesting, because when I go to the rec to work out in the morning, I'm staring right at STED, and that's pretty cool. And when I'm squatting on the squat rack on my metal knee that I got just down the block, it's pretty interesting to see it. But I think probably the coolest experience was this year. I got to wave to the hospital, and actually have a video that I made of both sides of the wave, which not many people can say that they have. And doing that was a really cool experience. But being able to see that hospital, some days it's a really cool thing, but then some days when I'm not having the best day or my knee's hurting, I get a little nervous. I'm like, could I end up there again? So it has both sides of it.
Well, I appreciate you being here and sharing your story. Are there days where you just like don't want to tell the story and you just want to be?
For sure. I mean, it's definitely some days. I mean, almost every day, or not almost every day, but often people will ask me. I have a 2-foot scar on my leg. So it obviously brings up conversation. And a lot of those times I'm like, oh, another time. Like I want to say like I got attacked by a shark or something like that.
Fell off.
But it's like some days it's just like, I just want to be treated like a normal kid. Like I want to forget about it. I don't want this scar showing. But then other days I think it's a super cool opportunity, and I love sharing my story, and I love doing things like this, to be able to talk about it and spread awareness. So I do love sharing it, but then there's always, I think everyone has those days where they're just like, oh, I'm over it. I just want to forget about it for a day.
So what's the stupidest question someone has asked you? Like,
Oh, I
like
mean,
when we're doing an interview like this, it might have happened today. You
no, I've never gotten it. I've never really had a stupid question, but I think not in an interview, but I have been questioned. Me and my mom and I were questioned why I was in the handicap spot in a wheelchair. They did question that. So that was probably one of the funniest things, was this old lady at the mall asked me why we were in the handicap spot as I was in my wheelchair. That was something, but
You're right. You just have to laugh through
and we laughed about it. We were like, what is this lady thinking? Like, why would you ask that? But
You're not old enough to have a handicap.
and I still get, when I was even using a walker or like driving on my own, I would park in the handicap spot to walk in. I still get weird looks, or people don't know, but it was just that was probably one of the funniest moments.
So, what are has your professional goals changed at all as a result of your cancer journey?
For sure. So originally, probably since even middle school, I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. I wanted to be in the medical field. I took every single science class in high school in order to do that. I was going to college to be an anesthesiologist. Like that was my set goal. Then after that, I was like, can't step foot in the hospital anymore. Can't even do it. I was like, no science, no medical. I'm done with it.
Really?
So then I switched over to business and hopefully going down the financial path now. So I really did want to be an anesthesiologist, and people really think that's an odd switch.
Yeah. I don't know. How did you choose anesthesiology? Did you ever know an anesthesiologist?
Not really. I mean, we knew some mutually that I'd talked to, but it was never like I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And because I had a hernia removed, and I think that was kind of what sparked it. But I just always thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Okay, so your cancer journey, you didn't come through it being, I want to be a cancer doctor.
No, and I know people do. I know people want to, who aren't even in the medical like realm, wanted to go into medical, but that was a complete opposite for me. I couldn't even. I would love to, but I just can't bring myself to even step foot in the hospital on my own anymore.
So what's the best thing about being a Hawkeye?
Just the culture of being in Iowa City can't be beat. Just like we were talking about earlier, the sports teams, the people there, the fact that my doctors are there, just the connections that I've made, the opportunities that are presented to me. It's something that can't be beat.
Yeah. So Rob, where'd you go to college?
LaSalle University in Philadelphia.
Okay. And so what do you think of your son going to Iowa? Did you ever hope he would go to LaSalle, or?
Not at all. No. Proud that he's a Hawkeye. Proud that we're Hawkeye supporters. From day one when we moved here in 2008, we were consumed by Hawkeye marketing. I'll just say, like, somehow we just ended up in the Hawkeye realm. And so Steven's had his eye on the university for 13, 14 years, and I'm super proud that he's there today.
And Rob, how have you changed as a result of your family's journey with Steven's cancer?
A lot of what Steven said, much more appreciation for every day and every hour and every person in our lives. I've taken nothing for granted ever since that diagnosis day, where I clearly know that I took things for granted prior to that day, June 14. So for me, it's taking things much more in stride, learning to take a deep breath and get to that deeper, more inner thought. That usually comes from the heart, not the primitive brain. And I've also stepped up my own personal fitness. I've personally committed to myself that I want to show Steven that fitness is the way to go. Above and Beyond Cancer has helped me keep up my fitness while going through some rough times. And I want to give all that back. And that's what I want to try to do. And I'm super proud of Steven wanting to share his story, because giving back is exactly what we needed. back in the day where we had some mentors come through. The more we can give back to those who are starting that journey will only make me more proud of us as a family. So that's really my focus right now, and calmer, kind of cooler, better heads are prevailing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steven, have you had the opportunity to be a mentor for anyone?
I've talked. So actually, someone who went to my school previously, then moved away, was actually diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. And I was able to really help him and coach him through everything because it was all new to him. And I remember that exact feeling. And I was able to get in contact with him, and kind of we just texted. If he ever had a question, he reaches out to me. He still does. And it's something that, I mean, I always want to do. And I'm always open to helping other people going through the same journey.
Good. Great. Let's open it up some questions. We've got a large live studio audience. Were there any photographs that we didn't touch on that we need? Okay,
No,
we'll
good.
do
Thank you.
some questions here. Poon, do you have a question?
No.
Here we go. We got Jerry does.
Yeah, Above and Beyond Cancer Book Group read a book a while ago it's called Between Two Kingdoms. And
Can you say that
author-
again, the name of the book?
Between Two Kingdoms.
Between Two Kingdoms, yes.
And the author went through a long chemo and treatment. And then about the second half of the book is about what happened after that. And her basic experience was it was worse, it was harder afterwards than when she was going through the treatment. I wondered if you had any feelings like that.
I don't think it was necessarily harder. It was definitely more of a relief to be done with it, but I definitely wouldn't say it was harder. It was more being focused on the rehab aspect, and I was definitely kept busy. So I definitely don't think it was harder. No.
Yes.
My question is concerning is that have you seen any advantages, the fact that you've had cancer versus if you did not have the cancer? Not just the handicap sticker or anything like that, but, perhaps, scholarships or opportunities that you had just because you had that cancer.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, the opportunities that have been presented and the people that I've met was definitely something that I would never have gotten without having cancer. And also, speaking of the scholarships, it was something great to write about. I mean, not a lot of people can write about that for essays, and a lot of essays that I've had to write have had to deal with like overcoming a challenge or overcoming adversity in life. And that's a great thing to write about. And then also the university and the hospital do offer scholarships for cancer survivors. So that was also a good advantage that was brought to my attention as well.
Hi, Steven. It sounds like you had quite a journey and you learned a lot and you've grown up, and it's such an inspirational story that you told us tonight. So I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. I'm the enemy. I'm a cyclone. So, and we didn't get a good NCAA seed, and we're not going to be going anywhere. But what do you think about the Hawkeyes and how far they're going to go?
Oh,
Prediction.
I think they have a chance to make it. I hope that they win it, but I think
You think they're going to get by the Jackrabbits? That could be their second game.
It could. I don't know. They got to get, if they make it past them, they got to get through Kansas.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's something. And then if they get through Kansas, it's Arizona.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll definitely be tough, but I think they have a Sweet 16 appearance in them for sure.
All right.
Iowa State, I don't know if they'll get past LSU, but we'll see.
So for those who weren't part, I went to South Dakota State undergrad, so they are in the same bracket, and if they both win their first game, they will play each other. So that'll be a challenging game to watch, not knowing who to root for. Any other questions for Stephen or Rob? Yes, George.
I got one actually. So you've had an opportunity to meet elite level athletes. Do you feel that athletes at that level have an extra understanding and appreciation for injury, illness, and recovery?
For sure. They definitely, they have the hardest training regimens on the planet, and they definitely know the importance of recovery and the importance of taking care of your body. So to hear it from them and to kind of get advice from them really makes a huge difference, because they have to perform at the highest level. And I think I obviously want to perform at the highest level as well. So being able to hear that from them and take the advice from them really helped me on my journey.
Excellent. Any last words of wisdom for our folks?
I mean, just being able to share my story, I'd like to thank you for that. And it's just an awesome opportunity. I mean, I want everyone to know that they can do it, whatever they're going through, whatever it may be, if it's with cancer or with mental battles or physical battles, that anyone can do it. And they just have to be able to reach out and talk to someone, because I was afraid to talk to someone at first, but talking to someone really changed my life. So that's what I wanted to say.
Great. Well, thank you, Steven.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. Please come and join us again next week. If you know someone who would like to see this video podcast, it's going to be on the Above and Beyond Cancer YouTube channel tomorrow, and it will also be at the Mercy Cancer Center website. So thanks again, and join us next week.